Hey guys, welcome back to Pete's Snakebite Kit. Thanks for visiting, thanks for watching. What we're going to talk about today is that 408 I've been all excited about. Talked about it a couple videos ago and going to talk about inside the 408. And you'll see some pictures and videos and things on kind of how I built it, what my thought processes were, and what I'm hoping to happen when I get smoke in the pipe and push on the loud pedal. And 35 days to delivery. So pretty excited about that. Get a call back to Hurricane today, this week, and really start bugging. Alex, get ready for the call. Can't wait to get this thing here and get the transportation company back there and put that thing in the truck and get it out here. The other thing is, I'm realizing it's October and we're in Utah. It's our second winter here. We're getting used to this and it's cold. Like here it looks like October comes in like springtime, goes out like an ice cube. It was 18 degrees this morning when I got up. It's pretty chilly, so sporting a sweatshirt here. So anyway, I'm gonna go through this video, introduce you to some of the stuff I'm doing in the engine, try and give a good explanation of it. I've got some stills of it, I've got some video of it, some explanation of my thought process. I'd like you to, hey, take a listen to this, take a look at it, and you online warriors, let me know what you think. Like, where am I gonna end up on this thing? I've got a horsepower goal that I'm hoping to meet. Maybe I'll meet it, maybe you think I'm crazy, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but kind of curious of what your take on this thing is. So anyway, enjoy the video. I'll pop in a couple times, explain things as we go along. Thanks. All right, so let's take a look at the short block here. You'll see a couple pictures of it here in a minute. Here's how we built this thing. So it was a 351 Windsor block, 1969. Supposedly that's a fairly heavy duty one as far as the stock blocks go. It's not as good as buying an aftermarket block. That adds a few grand to the build. Didn't want to do that. But it's a 1969 block, as you know, boarded 30 over. The crankshaft, it's a steel crankshaft with a 4-inch stroke. It's a scat crank. Very tough, strong crankshaft. The connecting rods are steel rods, 6.2 in length, and they're H-beams, which is a good design, makes them very strong. So that's what kind of rods we have in it. The main bolts took out, put in ARP studs, which provides better clamping force on the main caps. And then I got a girdle that ties all the main caps together. You'll see pictures of that. So this is how I built it, hoping that I've overbuilt this thing strength-wise. What I don't want to have is parts flying out from under the hood. I've lived through that before with some stuff that makes horsepower, didn't quite have enough bottom end to hold the thing together. In the 80s, it was really beyond most people's budget to buy an aftermarket block, to buy steel rods and steel aftermarket cranks and stuff like that. And honestly, we're kind of on the edge on some of that stuff. So this thing's kind of bulletproof. Here's what I think from the reading I've done and guys I've talked to. We're thinking this short block is good to 750 or 800 horsepower, like for real on a regular basis. We're gonna be nowhere near that. So we're really hoping we put together a good bottom end here that's gonna live. If I wanna add some nitrous to it, it's gonna live. And that's where we hope we're at. What do you think? Take a look. Okay, what we want to talk about here is deck height. So that's how high the piston is up in the block. So for the most part, the higher the piston is, the more compression it's going to be. Also, they seem to be a little bit more efficient when the piston isn't sitting down in the hole, so the combustion chamber isn't an edge of the cylinder wall plus then the top of the piston, but having that thing all the way up. What I wanted to do is put this thing real close to zero. Find a machine shop you know and you trust and you can communicate with. Had a little bit of issues with that. I'm not going to mention any names on this, but had a little bit of a issue with that with a machine shop guy I knew, really well known for a long time. Did very good work. Had some communication issues with him, very frankly. Emailed a crap load of stuff to him and got the thing back. And these things are like 8-9 thousandths in the hole. Kind of bummed out about it. I pulled it back apart, took it to the local machine shop, measured everything for him, and then told them what I wanted, and they remachined it and put the deck height where I wanted it. Put these things at almost at zero. They're about just under 1 thousandths in the hole. You'll see a picture of that. But maybe talk to local racers. Maybe talk to other machine shops. Make sure you know the guy that you're using and that you trust him. If you're buying a crate engine, it's easy. But if you're trying to design something around what you really want to do and make it custom, that can be a point of frustration. So. All right, if you're putting your engine together, meaning it's all your deal, right? You got to make sure stuff fits. Valve to piston clearance, VPC cannot be overlooked. For the most part, it's going to fit unless you've got a very high compression ratio and a very aggressive camshaft duration-wise and so on. It's probably going to fit, but you don't want to learn the hard way. So I'll show you a quick picture here of what I did. Mocked the thing up with a very light spring in it, and then ran the piston up and down and checked it, the valve to clearance on there with a dial indicator. Had a ton of room. I could put a bigger rocker arm in it if I wanted to, and still have clearance. I calculated that. If I want to put a bigger cam in it, tons of room in there. It's a flat top piston. And unless you're getting a super aggressive one where the valve's really chasing the piston down the hole, you're probably not going to run into problem. But if it's a crate engine, somebody else is figuring this out, hopefully. If it's your deal, make sure you check VPC, valve to piston clearance. All right, oil pressure. If there's one thing that's going to decide if your engine lives or dies, obviously it's oil pressure. But a very, very critical time for oil pressure is right when you start the thing up. So what I wanted to do is make sure I had good oil pressure before I started. So mocked it up on the engine stand, as you can see, and then I cranked it, just with a speed wrench to see if I had oil pressure. Made a little bit of a mess because I wanted to watch it come out of the rocker arms. Once it comes out of the rockers, we know it's oiled the entire oiling system. So here we go. Gonna crank it up, see what happens. Take a look. Make sure you check your oil pressure. Even if it's a crate engine, I'd recommend making sure you see a gauge move before you put smoke in the pipes. All right, here we go. This thing's close to being buttoned up, ready to put in the car. What I want to do first is I want to make sure I've got oil pressure in this thing before I put power to it. So, got my speed handle, 5/16 socket. What I'm going to do is spin this around manually. Hey, I'm going to see if we get oil pressure on this gauge. I want to see oil come up to the lifters and the rockers. If we've got oil there, we've got oil everywhere. Let's see what happens. We got 60 pounds. We got oil coming out of the rockers. We got oil dripping on the floor. That's not that great, but I wanted to see it. All right, that's looking good. That means we've got oil to the main bearings. We've got oil to the filter. We've got oil up to the rockers. We're good to go. I'm gonna clean up my mess, put this thing together. Okay, as you've probably seen, I've got a set of AFR heads on this thing. They're pretty sweet. Went with the Victor Jr. open plenum intake. And when I first put this on, you can kind of see down there, I'm like, I got a port mismatch. I'm gonna have to pull this thing apart and blend those together so we've got a match. Don't have to do that. What I did is I played with lining this thing up. Got some lines on here you can see. When I've got those lined up properly, I've got a pretty close match on the port. In fact, it looks like this Victor Jr. is just a little smaller than the runner opening on these cylinder heads. So get this thing lined up. We've got a runner that's opening up into a bigger intake runner. Hey, not the best thing in the world. I'm not trying to get the last 2.5 or 5 horsepower out of this thing. I think it's gonna scare the pants off me just how it is. So when you got your intake going and you're going to put it on, get a good look down those ports. If it is an open plenum, you can kind of do it this way. If you've got a dual plane or one that doesn't let you see down there, you know, you're gonna have to do it with some modeling clay and whatnot. But this was a nice, easy way to see that we're just gonna be able to bolt this thing up, get it in the car, and make some horsepower. All right, let's talk about some camshaft particulars and details and so on. I don't want to get too crazy mathematical or anything because I'll lose myself. But anyway, let's talk about the camshaft and the cylinder head stuff, the relationship between the camshaft and how the cylinder heads work, and what I did there to try and meet the goals I'm trying to hit with this engine. So as I mentioned before, I've got a set of Airflow Research 195 cylinder heads on it. They publish a flow chart on it that says how much air they flow at what lift. So how much air will go through them, and depending on how big the cam is. So it's 600 thousandths lift, and I'm right about there. I'm at 597, 595, so right, we'll call it 600 for easy math. So what they're doing is they're flowing 294 CFM, cubic feet per minute, at 28 inches. That's how hard you're pushing the air, how fast you're pushing it through it. Kind of a standard industry for checking these. The exhaust is only flowing 231. It's okay that the exhaust is less than the intake. It's normal. However, there's a ratio that's very important. We want that to be minimum of 75. Over 80% is good stuff. So we're at 78%, which is pretty good. Some of the other head flow charts I looked at, this number in relationship is way down below this one because AFR does a really good job on this stuff. But I want to make up for that. I was hoping to get this number above 80. So let's see if we can do it with the split profile camshaft. So what I did is the intake duration at 50,000. So the lifter, right, when it lifts up, let's not measure when it comes off the seat. Let's see when it's really cracked open at 50 thousandths of an inch. 230 degrees of duration on the intake. 240 on the exhaust. So this is about 5% more than the intake, which will bump this up a little, depending on how you look at it, a little over 5%. Definitely get us in the 80% range. That's a very good ratio of how much exhaust we're flowing in relationship to the intake, right? This cam's got just a click under 600 thousandths of valve lift, 597, 595. For easy math, I'm calling it 600. Easy for looking at the chart here, and so on. Does anybody find it curious that the cam pushes up on the push rod, hits a rocker arm, then pushes the valve down, and we call it valve lift? Okay, maybe I'm overthinking this. Anyway, I think this is gonna work pretty good. After you guys look at everything on this video, do me a favor, put in the comments where you think I'm going to end up on horsepower. I'm hoping for 500 horsepower to the flywheel. Of course, it'll be less at the wheels, but that's kind of what I was shooting at. So you online warriors that have got all these formulas and stuff, I'm just curious what you think it's going to end up at. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hey, I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.